This is a periodontal probe. It measures in millimeters. In dental school, I learned that millimeters matter a lot. One of the things I've come to appreciate most since starting dental school is just how insanely precise dentistry is. I knew it was detailed work, I knew that from shadowing, but I didn't realize that literally every decision a dentist makes happens on a scale of millimeters, or really you could even say fractions of a millimeter. How precise does a dentist have to be? Find out on this episode of Dr. Dad the Dentist. Okay, so imagine working on something the size of a sugar cube using a drill that's rotating at 200,000 RPMs while the sugar cube is moving, breathing, and occasionally trying to swallow your fingers. Welcome to dentistry. Most people don't realize how insanely technical this job really is. I didn't realize it. We're not just poking around on teeth. We're measuring, diagnosing, restoring things with surgical level precision. And the difference between a procedure that's successful and one that's not can often come down to less than half of a millimeter, or 1/50th of an inch for those of us that don't typically use the metric system. Let's start with periodontal probing. You know, when the hygienist sticks this sharp little metal instrument in your gums and they start saying all these numbers, 3, 2, 5, whatever, they're measuring how deep your gum pockets are in terms of millimeters. A pocket that's 3 millimeters or less is considered healthy. A change in just 1 millimeter, less than the thickness of a dime, can signal the beginning of gum disease. That's how tight the margin for error is. It's not just accuracy, it's about being dead accurate every single time, as much as possible. And let's talk about fillings. When you drill out decay and prepare a tooth for a filling, you're often working within a space that's only a few millimeters wide by maybe a few millimeters deep. If you go too deep, you hit the nerve. That's bad. Too shallow, the decay comes back. That's bad too. Let me give you a personal example from my final operative dentistry practical where I had to do a cavity prep for an amalgam filling. The maximum depth for what was called the mesial peripheral shelf was 4 millimeters. Mine ended up being about 4.1 millimeters. You can see that here. This 1/10 of a millimeter was the difference between me being rated meets expectations and critical fail. Well, I was 4.1 millimeters, so I got critical fail. I was pretty crushed because I had worked really hard on this prep and I thought it was good. But I learned a lesson from this. Look closer at your work because a 1/10 of a millimeter really matters. Also, learn to look from different angles. Professor showed me that afterwards. But it's not just the drilling you have to think about. You also have to shape the restoration or the filling so that it fits perfectly with the opposing tooth, the one that comes in contact with it. Because if it's off by even a fraction of a millimeter, it'll throw off the patient's bite and they'll feel it every time they chew. Next thing you know, they have a cracked tooth. You know that thing where they tell you to bite down, tap, 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 grind, grind, grind? You know that thing?
Okay. Hold that paper. Open. Bite.
Well, they're checking if they need to remove a tiny bit of the filling material that's been put in. This is often maybe 1/10 of a millimeter or less. Very, very small amount. Have you ever thought about just how precise your dentist was having to be when they're working on your teeth? Leave a comment below telling me what you were thinking. Maybe you were just thinking, I wish they'd get out of my mouth. And how about crowns? When we prep a tooth for a crown, we're aiming for what's called a closed margin. That means that the edge of the crown fits flush with the natural tooth. If there's even a 0.2 millimeter gap, bacteria can sneak its way in and cause decay under the crown. The human eye can't even see 0.2 millimeter gap easily, but we're expected to spot it and fix it. That's why we use magnification such as loupes and microscopes and stuff like that. Even then, it's still one of the trickiest parts of the job. Oh yeah, and did I mention you're trying to do this in someone's mouth while they're awake, potentially bleeding, and generating gallons of saliva? It's fun. Now imagine this. When building a house, being off by half an inch isn't really that big of a deal. You can sand it down, you can cover it with trim, you can do a lot of stuff. But in dentistry, that would be absolutely catastrophic. We're working in tolerances that are smaller than half of a millimeter. That's less than 1/50th of an inch. Even aerospace engineers use micrometers and other specialized tools. Yet we dentists are expected to achieve the same precision using just our vision, touch, and feel. All of this inside a dark, wet, moving environment. And while machines don't flinch or gag when you work on them, our patients do. We're basically doing microscopic engineering underwater on live humans. Dentistry is often misunderstood as just, cleaning teeth or drilling cavities or whatever, but the truth is that we're really micromanaging biology with surgical precision. Every movement, every cut happens on a scale that's tiny. So the next time you're in the chair, just remember, your dentist isn't just working in your mouth. They're operating in a world of millimeters, where perfection is the baseline. Dentistry isn't just hard, it's precisely hard. But you know what? That's what I absolutely love about it, the challenge of getting it right, even on such a small scale. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Dr. Dad the Dentist. Follow your dreams, it is not too late. How about joining me on this journey through dental school and beyond? Click the subscribe button below and you'll be notified every time I put out a new episode. You will also be registered to win a super cool prize when we reach 1,000 subscribers. If you like this video, please click the like button, it really helps. I'd love to hear your comments on what we discussed today. See you next time. Hey!